Hi, welcome to the Wisdom of Your Soul. I'm your host, Janice Mary. I'm so glad to be back with you. Hope you had a great couple of weeks learning how to maybe give that ego voice a rest and trying to tap into your soul. I'm a psychotherapist and I have a private practice and a group practice, and I'm always searching for ways to help my clients, to help myself. And I had a really cool spiritual experience, which was really helped me get out of my ego, and really always trying to challenge myself to find ways to not only get out of the ego, but stay out of the ego. And that is a challenge for all of us here. We do have to live with the ego, the part of us that is a little critical, a little harsh, sometimes can be even bullying to us. We will have to learn to live with this ego and how we can make it work for us instead of letting the ego run our lives and also make us feel bad about ourselves. You know, why do we allow a voice that lives within us have that much power and control over us? We don't want to do that. Last week I wrote a post about comparing the ego to kryptonite. You know, the kryptonite that takes all of Superman's powers away. And yeah, it's a it's a cartoon, but we can really relate to that if something affects us to the point where we're not ourselves. We're not our authentic selves, and takes all of our power away and all of our drive or motivation, like kryptonite does to Superman. In essence, kryptonite makes Superman powerless. He doesn't have any of his powers when he's around that stone. So we don't want to allow something to take all of our power away. And for us, it's the ego. So if you look at it that way, that our ego is our kryptonite, that if we really allow our ego to take over and we live just in the ego mind, that it can really, make us live in a very unempowered way, not in our powerful, superpower way. And can take away our life of abundance, can take away our life of all of our dreams, So we really have to look at the ego in ways that help us. And although that's a little drastic to call the ego's effect kryptonite, I do believe it fits sometimes. When I see, sometimes I'll get an ego thought that will just kind of take me down. A thought will come in, and if I believe it, it could really disrupt my day. It could disrupt my practice. It can just disrupt me so much. When I'm more in that other energy, our energy of our being, our energy of our consciousness, the energy of our soul. We're in this other energy. We're not really thinking too much, and we're just, kind of operating on a more intuitive level, which could feel to some people more primitive, but it's actually not, because it's much more advanced. When you go into your soul energy, there's so much wisdom, and that's why I entitled this The Wisdom of Your Soul, because there's so much access to more information than through the ego, which is really just learned basically from the world. The ego studies the world and tells us what we need to do to be perfect in this world and to be successful in this world. And some of the things that the ego can suggest is helpful and we can do. But most of the things that the ego suggests is really comes from a very deficit place, and also comes from a very critical place. So it's not really the best way to learn for us. So I want you to think about, maybe just being curious about yourself, curious about this ego versus this soul being energy, and to kind of just keep encouraging yourself to even consider the thought that there is this other way to be in the world. And when you're in this, your soul energy, you're really very, very present, and you're not really traveling too much into the future or the past. So it's helpful in that way. And it can make you feel very good, because living in the present moment is very satisfying. Even if you're just having a cup of coffee, it's much, much more satisfying to drink a cup of coffee in the present moment than to drink a cup of coffee in a fear of the future. If you're sitting there drinking your coffee and you're thinking about all the horrible things that are going to happen in this world, how is that for us? If we're sitting there drinking coffee and thinking about the election or thinking about scary things or what's going to come of the world, like a lot of my clients will get into a lot of fear-based thinking and just kind of sit in it. And I catch myself if I'm not on social media that much, but even if I go on it for even a couple of minutes, I feel it start affecting me. Again, like that ego's kryptonite. And I don't avoid social media, but I really realize that it doesn't really make me feel good, So if something doesn't make me feel good, the energy of being has kind of taught me to kind of move away from it. I don't have to move away from it. I still know what's going on in the world. I'm still educated. I'm still concerned. I still do the best that I can to make this world a better place. But I often can see that even 5 minutes reading too many news stories isn't good for me. So that's something that, again, you want to be curious about your own self. What are you doing in your day that is making you feel better or worse? And generally, if we're not feeling so good, if we're feeling really, really stressed, it's because we're in the mode of the ego, of trying to be controlling. Like the ego wants us to be a little more controlling. And, we don't, it's not the best way for us to live, to be in the have to, like I have to do this or I have to be a certain way. That's very ego driven. I have to, finish everything that's on my list. I've got to get that done. If not, what happens? Nothing happens. But in the ego's mind, it's almost like it's the death of us if we're not productive in a day. And that's just something that the ego has us buy into. As you move away from the ego and you get curious about this other energy, this energy that's very present within you, you really have to be present for it. And, it's hard for us to move out of the ego to be present for the soul energy. I know even sometimes I will fight it a little bit. I won't write a post or I won't tape one of these recordings because it really requires me to let go of all the ego stuff that I have to get done. Or to have more of a balance. And that can be hard for all of us to just kind of disengage from it and say, all right, I'm going to let that go right now. I'm not going to, I'm not going to live by my ego. I'm not going to let the ego run the show for today. So when I work with people, basically I try to help people to remember to stay very present. If you're struggling with any anxiety or depression, you could really benefit by going into your soul energy. There isn't any anxiety or depression in your soul energy. So if you have quote unquote an anxiety disorder, or if you have been diagnosed with depression and all the things that we like to label ourselves, you can be free of that if you really learn to move out of that ego mindset. It's really the ego mindset that's telling you that you have to be a certain way, or that you have to get certain things done, or that there's a lot of fear, that you can't do things because something bad is going to happen to you. So if you think about just taking 1 minute at a time, one minute at a time in your day, you're not going to feel as anxious as if you're in your day and thinking about all the things that you have to get done today. So again, going back to sitting and having coffee, if you're sitting there and you're enjoying your coffee and you smell the coffee and you taste the coffee and you're holding the warm cup and you're really enjoying that coffee, there's no anxiety in that. There can't be any anxiety or depression in that moment. However, if you're sitting there with your coffee and you're in the future and you're thinking about all the things that you haven't done, and you're thinking about, that just you don't have enough money, or whatever is going through your mind, your worries, or you're not in a relationship, anything that is upsetting you, if you're sitting there with your coffee thinking those things, the coffee isn't going to be very pleasant. You're not even going to notice the coffee. The coffee will be secondary to those thoughts. Those ego thoughts will take over and take away the enjoyment of even just that cup of coffee. So it is really that, it's very interesting to see what happens to us. So again, you just be curious and watch yourself as the day goes on. Kind of tune into yourself every hour. How am I doing this hour? How do I feel? Is my body relaxed? Am I in my thoughts? Am I thinking? As a therapist, I'm trained to think and analyze and think. So I literally have to kind of untrain myself to live in that more intuitive way. And feeling the soul energy more predominantly in my life makes it easier, because I can just feel the energy and that pulls me out of the ego. So that's what I want for you. I want you to have ways to pull yourself out of that ego. And it can be very, very difficult. Again, it's the kryptonite of the day, so if the ego is running, it's really hard to stop it in midstream. You really have to have some techniques that work for yourself. Some people will be like, I'm just not going to think about this right now. And so they put it on the shelf, Some people will distract themselves with something that they love to do, as opposed to sitting there and thinking and worrying and being upset, which is also really, really helpful, just to do something you love to do, whether it's painting or going for a walk with a friend. That will help you get out of those ego thoughts that are generally not saying very nice things to us, So you have to do a couple of things to really tap into the wisdom of your soul. And why wouldn't you want to tap into this wisdom? And why wouldn't you want to feel how good it feels to be in that soul energy? If you read my posts, a lot of my posts are trying to give you the experience of what it feels when you are in that energy. The love for yourself that you feel, the abundance for yourself that you feel, the rightness of your being. That's how you feel. And but it's hard to express it in words, and sometimes it's hard to talk about it, and it's hard to write it. And so that's why I'm just really encouraging you to try it and do it for yourself. So you do have to kind of put that kryptonite away, and you have to really disengage from the ego and go more into the present moment, and then and just try to really feel this present moment and feel how good that feels. And when you feel that, that's when you start to feel your energy, the energy of your consciousness. And it's in that energy that is the wisdom. That energy carries wisdom, and that energy carries knowledge. So when you're tapping into that energy, that's where you get all this information from. A lot of times I don't even know, where I get this information from, but it's in that energy. That's where it's really coming from. So we really have to disengage from the ego a little bit to hear it, to feel it, and to be with it, and why wouldn't you want to do that? Why do we allow ourselves to be so wrapped up with the ego mind? Why do we allow ourselves to listen to a voice that can be so mean and critical and unkind? Why do we allow that? Why do we allow ourselves to watch things on TV that are also upsetting? That doesn't really help our moods. That makes our heartbeats, or makes us feel tense or anxious. Why do we allow ourselves to experience that? And there's nothing wrong with experiencing that. It's just if we don't have a balance, then we're going to think the world is all of those negative things. So what I really like about the soul energy is that it's the balance. So if you want to feel, the sadness of life, and if you want to, feel all those different feelings that, even if we didn't label them as bad, it's just different feelings that feel hurtful. If you want to feel them for a little while, that's fine. But to have that balance, and not to think that that's all that you are, because there's this other part of you that is so strong and so loving and so kind and so abundant, that really hasn't got a chance to live out in your life as much as maybe the ego has, and maybe it hasn't, maybe you're fine and you're doing great, and that's fine. So maybe you're just exploring the soul energy. You just want to know about it, and that's good too, because I just don't think, I don't think that unless you really stay very, very present and feel this energy in within you, and get the knowledge for yourself, that you're going to understand how beneficial it is to you and to your body. We're so health conscious, but yet we're not mind conscious, and our thoughts do affect our body. So if we're spending half of our lives in negative thoughts and watching and feeding our minds all this negative stuff, our body is really under quite a bit of stress. And since COVID has happened, and it's such a stressful time for people, people are feeling that. They're feeling so much stress in their bodies. So the best thing for us to do is to really become very, very present. And if a thought comes in while you're trying to be present that worries you or upsets you, then just write the script of what you want. So if you're sitting there, you're enjoying a cup of coffee, and then money worries come in your mind, you could then just write what you want. That money comes to me freely and easily, and you just say that to yourself over and over again. So you're giving yourself the thing that you want. So you're giving the answer to the worry, and that helps the mind a little bit to settle down. You could also say something like, "Well, if I didn't have this worry, how would I feel today?" If I didn't have whatever challenge is running through my mind, because there's always something, if I didn't have this challenge, what would I be doing today? If everything was fine in my life, if I had the perfect relationship, if I had the desired amount of money, if I had good health, if I had everything going right, what would I choose to do today? If I didn't really have anything to worry about. And then make a list of those things that you want to do, and then start to try to do them. That is really a great antidote to anxiety and depression. So again, we let what the ego is bringing to our mind to really consume us and to be center stage. It's almost like anytime the ego brings us a message, we put a stop to everything. It's like, okay, what? Stop. We're going to wait. And we're going to address what the ego has just brought to us, even if we know that it's not true. Even if whatever thought comes into our mind, we know that, well, that's not true about me. I have a lot of clients that they just feel like bad people. And then when I really ask them, do you really, really think you're a bad person? You're a human person. You're not perfect, but do you really, really think you're a bad person? And the answer is no. So why are you living your day trying to prove to yourself that you're not a bad person? We get so derailed with trying to prove the ego wrong. It is like being in that bad relationship and always trying to prove to the person that they're wrong about you, that they have you wrong, they're misperceiving you. So many relationships, I when I work with people, they just are heartbroken because their partner is perceiving them in the wrong way, and they want so much to prove to their partner that that they're perceiving them wrong. And it's a very, very hard thing to let go of when you think somebody's perceiving you in a way. So in a way, if we make the ego another person, we're doing the same thing just in our ego mind. We're just trying to prove the ego wrong. If you're saying I'm a bad person, I'm going to prove to you I'm a good person. And I'm going to prove to you I'm a good person by doing this, this, and that. Instead of saying to the ego, I am a good person, I don't have to prove this to you, and I'm going to go do what I want to do. That's a very different reaction to the thoughts that could come into your mind. So anytime a thought that comes in, you want to first ask yourself, is this true? Is this even true? Is this thought true? And if the answer is no, then maybe you could let that go. If you feel like the answer is yes, if you feel like, yeah, I am a bad person, then you just have to kind of help yourself and say, well, really, really sit with that. What makes me a bad person, and really try to help yourself move away from that. And if you can't, then you could think about, well, what makes a good person? And visualize yourself being this good person, that this imagined person that you think that you should be, and that you just are. You just are that good person. So again, it's ways in trying to disengage from the craziness of our ego. It's the ability to find a way to move away from harsh and critical treatment of the self and going more into a much more accepting and loving place. And when you do that, then you're not thinking as much, and you're able to catch more the present moment. And when you catch the present moment, that's when you're going into more of that soul energy that you have. And then that's where you're going to find all your gifts and your abundance and parts of you that you didn't even know existed, and answers to ego's problems. Gives you insights and answers to the things that are bothering the ego. So it's almost like, again, the ego is the child and the soul is the parent, and always has like these wise answers and can help the ego child a lot. So don't let your ego be the kryptonite. Don't allow it to take over, and really challenge yourself. Challenge yourself. Do it in those 3 steps. If you want to, practice this every hour, you just make yourself very present, just to bring yourself present, whatever you're doing. And if the ego comes in and you can't get off of that thought, then you basically just give the ego whatever it wants and say to yourself, okay, so the ego's saying that I need to do this. Okay, so you imagine yourself doing it and doing it successfully, and then you're a success. And then you can kind of let it go. If you can't let it go, if that doesn't work, you can just say, if I didn't have this worry, if I didn't have this concern, what would I be doing today? If I wasn't thinking all of this, if I wasn't worried about politics, if I wasn't worried about COVID, if I wasn't worried about my children, if I wasn't worried about money, what would I be doing today? And you do that. And once you do that, you can settle down, you can feel more relaxed, you can be more present. The ego takes its rightful place. The energy that lives within you rises up, and you get to experience it. You get to get intuitive knowledge. You get flashes of answers. You get inspirations and ideas of what you want to do with your life. You get to be peaceful and calm and settled and just happy. You get to be just happy because you know that everything works out no matter what. Everything works out. Even in really tough times, things work out for us. Things are always working out for us. And we're always safe. We're always protected. We're always guided. And even if we have to leave this world, we're always still safe. So nothing bad is going to happen to us. We're eternal beings. And if it's time for our bodies to be done, then we continue on. So in that safety and in that love and in that knowledge, you can feel that, and that is your gift. It's a gift to live life knowing all of that. It really settles the scared ego down and helps you in your life, and helps you then go in the directions that you truly, truly want to go in, not in the directions that you think you should be going in. So I hope that helps for today. Have a beautiful, wonderful day. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to email me at janismart40@yahoo.com. I'd love to hear from you. Have a beautiful week, and I'll talk to you again next week. Take care. Bye-bye.